Hello, storytellers. This is the Everyday American Writer. Thank you for watching. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you enjoy the content, and let's get started. So, today I'm going to be talking to you about discipline, what it means, and how to put basically how to put words on the page consistently every day. But this doesn't also have to apply to writers. It can also apply to everyday creatives, whether you're a painter or even a craftsman. I consider writers to be just like a hybrid between craftsmen and artists, but this can apply to you as well. So everyone is going to be, obviously primarily going to be focusing on writing, because this is a writing storyteller channel. But I personally try to put in about 4 to 6 pages. Usually it's leaning toward 4 or 5 pages. I usually sit down and write 4 or 5 pages every single day, on the average. Now, once in a blue moon, maybe once or twice a month, I may skip a day and just take the day off. But even still, I consider, the kind of craft of writing to be more than just writing pages on the scene, but also maybe writing of outline, also just thinking of your story, thinking of the next scene. All that is part of writing, but I do try, the only way you're going to be able to finish a book is to actually put pages, or put words on the page, and crank out pages every day until you get, to that, whatever it is, 350 page mark, whatever you decide, however long the length of that novel is going to be. Or if you're writing a short story, it's going to be much shorter than that. A blog post, whatever it may be. But I'm going to give you some general kind of core principles that I practice every day and how I maintain a disciplined life. Now, obviously, everyone has a different situation, especially if you have kids, you have a family you have to raise and take care of. I don't have that at the moment. I will at some point in my life, but right now that I don't have that, so that is not taking up a bunch of my time. So, like I said, there's all kinds of circumstances like that are going to prevent you from doing the kind of level of output that I'm doing at the moment. Some people even do way more than I do, which I think is pretty crazy. But it's very impressive. But so, discipline. What is discipline? Let's talk about that first of all. So, discipline is basically the ability to sit down or stand up and do something on a consistent basis, no matter how you feel about it, no matter if you're angry, sad, depressed, bored, uninspired, no matter what emotion you're going through, you are going to get the work done no matter what. You're going to start the work, and you're going to see how it goes, and you're going to see how far you get. That's essentially what discipline is. Just think of it. It's like doing the dishes or doing the laundry every day. No one feels like doing the laundry. Like, chances are whenever you go to do the laundry, you're like, oh man, I can't wait to do the laundry. It's just, but you have the discipline to do it anyway, regardless of how you feel. You have to put that same sort of discipline into your creative works, or your craftsmanship. You just have to do it. You have to get yourself to sit down at that desk and start writing out pages. Now, I'm going to give you some actual tips on how you can make that process so much easier for yourself. Now, like I said, I write about 4 or 5 pages a day. Some people keep track of, what. So first off, I recommend having a goal for how much you want to write every day. I recommend making that goal small at first and manageable, so that way you can actually achieve it, and then increasing it over time until you eventually max it out at about, all right, you can pretty much, like, you're tapped out at about 4 or 5 pages in my case. So, like, whenever I started to try to write every day, I told myself, all right, I'm just going to try to write 2 pages every day. Now, that's about 500 words. I calculated it at about 250 words per page. It's obviously a little off from that on time, from time to time, depending on whether you have maybe like a page or like some short snippy kind of like dialogue, where there's like a lot of white space on the page as opposed to like, paragraphs and blocks of description. That's going to be a pretty big workout difference. But on the average, you're going to have about 250 words per page. But I do it by page now. I used to do it by word count. I used to say I want to achieve 1,250 to 1,500 words per day. But then I just switched to pages because I started writing on a notebook, and it's a lot harder to keep track of word count until you actually transcribe it from the notebook to the computer. I used to just write exclusively on the computer on a Word document, and you can easily keep track of the word count there. But since I switched to handwriting, which I prefer way more over writing on the computer now, just the words flow much easier. Now I just keep track of my daily writing through number of pages. So set a goal for yourself. I recommend for new writers, set a small goal that's manageable, because chances are you are not one of those very fortunate writers that gets to write full-time as a full-time career. I'm not one of those writers. I have a full-time 40 hours a week job, sometimes overtime, that I have to do on top of being able to write pages every day. So it is what it is. That's probably going to be the case for most of you. So I recommend starting out with just like 2 pages, 500 words per day, and just do that every single day. Just sit at a table and write out 500 words. Now, you're not always going to be able to write the full 500 words, the full 2 pages or 4 pages, whatever goal you set for yourself. You're not always going to be able to do that in one sitting. But I recommend if you can, try to do it in one sitting, and try to do it at a time where you do have that free time, whether it's early in the morning before work, or it's sometime in the afternoon after work, or even late at night, right before you go to bed. Still try to get your sleep. That is very important to maintain clarity in your writing, and just, being a healthier person, which is very important to the writing process. You want to be happy and healthy as much as you can whenever you're writing. You don't have to be one of these miserable stereotypical writers. I mean, that's not the goal here. You want to maintain a happy, healthy life while writing, ideally, for your own longevity. But try to set some time aside. I think you'll find that you can bust out 2 pages in about 30 minutes to an hour if you sit down with a plan. Now that's the next part of this. So after you've carved out a chunk of time in your day, now this can change. Maybe one day you write in the morning, one day you write in the afternoon. This is kind of based on feeling and your schedule and what time is available for you to actually write. I personally write typically always at night, around like 7 or 8 at night or so, and then I might do something else after that for a couple hours and then go to sleep. Or during the weekend, what I like to do is I like to write early in the morning, and then I will do chores or whatever in the middle of the day, and then I'll write some more in the evening. So that's kind of how I personally like to tackle it, but that's not going to work for everyone. You just kind of got to feel it out and try different things until you settle on which way you'd like to do it personally, because everyone's different. But I'm going to some tips for actually achieving this and actually getting down and writing those pages. And for me, it takes about 2 to 3 hours to write 4 to 6 pages or so, typically, unless I'm really on a roll. But usually it's about 2 to 3 hours. Sometimes I can bust out 4 pages in like an hour and a half. It really just depends, but I just say 2 to 3 hours. So one technique that I use to do this is, first off, so I think it's whenever you sit down to write, it's helpful to have your ending of the story in mind. So that way, whenever you start writing the story, you can kind of meander to some degree, and it not disrupt you too much, because you can always circle back around to the planned ending that makes sense. So have an ending in mind, first off. But also try not to get into this thing where you're trying to think of the entire scope of the story from beginning to end and make it all make sense during every writing session. What I want you to do instead is I want you to break up the story in scenes. Now, a scene is only going to be like maybe 1 to 6 to 12 pages maximum, shorter the better for a scene. But a scene is just going to accomplish, one step along the journey of the whole story. And the whole story may comprise of, I don't know, it's different for everyone. But for me, a whole story might have like 30 to 60 scenes in total that are like maybe like on average like 4 pages a piece. So just focus on what is the next scene you're going to write on and think of the beginning and ending of that scene and the details in the middle and the characters involved. And if you focus on a smaller scope, that's going to help you concentrate more a lot easier whenever you sit down to write just that scene that you're thinking of. Maybe try to ruminate a little bit. Maybe what I like to do is think about the scene before I write, maybe the day before, and then I'll write up like a quick like 1 paragraph summary of the scene, of like what events I want to happen, what points in the plot I want to advance, what information I want to uncover, the characters that are going to be in it. And I just focus on that whenever I sit down to write. So that way, I don't overwhelm myself thinking about, oh, how is this going to affect everything else? And, in my future plans for whatever is going to happen, I try not to think about that too much. I just, maybe try to work that out beforehand, when you write out the summary. And then whenever you sit down and actually write the actual words on, for the pages of your book, you're just focusing on that paragraph summary or the 4 pages that you're going to write that day. And you literally just repeat this process every day until eventually, sure enough, you have, page by page by page by page, every day you have added enough pages till eventually after, 3 to 6 months to a year, you will have completed a full novel. Now, for me personally, writing 4 to 5 pages on average per day, that is... So let's just say you write, let's say you write 4 pages per day, 1,000 words per day, totally manageable. You could probably do that once you get in a good groove, 4 pages in like an hour and a half. So just think about it. So like a year is 365 days. So if you wrote 4 pages a day, you could write essentially 4 365 page novels, first drafts, in a year. You could write 4 books a year. Now, obviously, that doesn't include the extra time you'll need to actually do the layers of edits afterward, which you'll want to do if you're truly a craftsman and you want to make the best story you can possibly make. You're going to want to do some edits, but that's part of the fun anyway. It's like chipping away at a marble block as a sculptor. The first draft is, you got the rough kind of outline of your sculpture, and then, the edits is where you really get those fine, details, like the sensory details, and, you modify the character voice and all these fun little things. Everyone has a different version of that too. We'll go into editing and stuff later. Right now we're just really talking about discipline and how to put words on the page, but I'd say the biggest step, the biggest hurdles here is one, carving out an hour to 2 per day, whatever is best for you personally in your schedule. 2 is to think about what you're going to write in terms of the scene you're going to write and not overwhelm yourself with thinking about the entire story. So just plan out, write a quick summary of that scene, and then you'll have that as your go-to. So that way, if you sit down to write and you start writing the scene, you're like, oh, where is this going to go? Well, you already know where it's going to go because you wrote that paragraph of that scene. You know exactly where it's going to end. Now, you still have full permission to change it on the fly. I do that all the time. I mean, I usually start it about the same place as I wrote down the summary, but I may end it in a completely different place. I may take out characters and put in characters on the fly. I may make up new characters on the fly. So all this is free game. But it's very comforting to know that you can look back at this summary that you've written before you even start writing on the page, and know that you have a roadmap that you can follow that is going to give you all the answers. In the worst case, you can't think of where the story is going to go. Like, you know where it's going to go if you have that summary. So carve out, an hour or two to write per day. Think of the story in terms of scenes. Write a summary of what you're going to write about, and then just sit down and write it. And, eventually, day by day, you will finish a first draft of a sizable novel in not much time. 4 pages a day, that's 365-page first drafts per year, 4 novels per year. And one novel per year is impressive. 4 novels per year is insane. So that doesn't include the time it takes to edit. Let's say it takes, the same amount of time to edit as it does for you to write the first draft of the novel. Even still, that is 2 fully polished 365-page novels completed per year if you do 4 pages per day, which is totally manageable the more you get into it. And this is really going to take practice. The more days you do it consistently in a row, the easier it's going to be for you to do it. So it was like maybe a little difficult at me, doing this like the first couple weeks, but you eventually just get into a groove like anything, and it just becomes a natural part of your routine. And that is true discipline. Just sitting down, no matter the circumstance, no matter where you are. And I do highly recommend being able to try to train yourself to write wherever. Don't just tell yourself that, oh, I can only write in my little corner office. Like, be able to write anywhere, at the park, at the coffee shop, at if you have a job that has some downtime, maybe write on your break or your lunch, write at a friend's place. There's a million places you can write, and you're only going to be writing for an hour and a half anyway, not a huge chunk of time. So just try to practice writing in different places as well. And just try not to restrict yourself to writing at just a particular location. And I think, if you do everything I said, as far as, writing in scenes, then you're really going to reduce the amount of stress that it takes to write. And you're going to find that actually the writing process becomes a lot more fun, because you are not as stressed out, and you're focused more on the fun part of it, the creative part of writing, because you have kind of a beginning and end in mind. And, I kind of like to free write the middle part, because I know how it begins, I know how it ends. And now in the middle, I can just add conflict and all kinds of fun stuff in the middle. Everyone's going to be different as far as that regard goes, but, hopefully I've given you some ideas on, how to maintain discipline and write pages every single day. So if you liked this information, support a fellow human writer and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Thank you for watching The Everyday American Writer, and I'll see you on the next video.